Did you know that there are about 700 species of bacteria in our oral cavity? It's no wonder that mouth probiotics are getting a lot of attention lately, and that's why I wanted to create this video for you, talking about and answering that big question: should you take a mouth probiotic? You're going to want to watch the full video because at the end I'm also going to include some other interesting information, including what a possible root cause of that kind of sweet decomposing apple taste is in the mouth, and then also what a possible root cause of sewage breath is. So I'm Ashley Oswald, registered dietitian and founder of Oswald Digestive Clinic, where we help people improve and eliminate bothersome gut issues like gas, bloat, diarrhea, and or constipation. You can work with us one of two ways. You can work with us one-on-one, and you can schedule a free 30-minute gut health call below to see if we'd be a good fit, or you can take our new Heal Your Gut course. So if you're interested in those, you might want to just do that while you're listening to this video. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk about, should you take a probiotic for your mouth? So before I create a video, I like to do a full PubMed review, because the reality is I'm working in gut health, I have a gut health clinic, and the field of gut health is changing so fast. So I think it's really important to stay on top of these things, especially before creating a video for you all. So that's what I did. And I got really lucky with this topic because last year in 2020, there happened to be a full review article that came out, which made my life so much easier. So let me share some of that to give you some background, and then we're gonna dive more into the juice of this and the real big question: should you take a probiotic? So this review article was largely on something called halitosis, which is just a fancy word for bad breath. And I'd say it's probably one of the biggest concerns that people do have about mouth health, because it affects day-to-day life. You know, it's embarrassing, and maybe a little less so since most people are wearing masks now, but I mean, it can be really embarrassing. It can affect dating if somebody's dating, and so many things like self-esteem, etc., etc. And the cool thing about this is, and a lot of people don't know this, but halitosis largely has to do with things that we can change, that we have power over, which is wonderful to not feel like a victim to halitosis. And so some of the things that this review article talked about as far as what might be causing halitosis includes things like smoking and antibiotic use, and the toothpaste that somebody's using, the mouthwash that they're using, and the microflora, so the bacteria in our mouth. So there is this one bug that we know of, Streptococcus mutans, that if there's too much of that in the mouth, it can be causing this halitosis. And then there's other nutrition factors that can lead to an off balance of bacteria in the mouth. So as mentioned, there's 700 species. And with our biomes, we have that microbiome in the colon, and then this microbiome in our mouth too. It's all about the balance. So we just need to have enough of the good players to off balance the bad players. And there's different things that can influence that we'll talk about in this video. But so why is this important? Well, if you have too much of the bad bugs, it can also lead to things like dental caries, gum inflammation, mouth inflammation, and even cancers. They're even connecting too much of bad bugs in the mouth, bad bacteria, to oral cancer. So this is a really big deal. And the oral microbiota, it's mostly composed of things like the firmicutes, the bacteriocytes, fusobacteria, proteobacteria, if that's interesting to you. If not, we're not going to spend too much time on it. So another thing this review article talked about, and you may or may not know this, but basically these oral diseases can also lead to other systemic disease issues. And there's a study in 2017 that found that periodontal disease has been tied to Alzheimer's disease, if you can believe that or not. So it might be like the chicken and the egg, what caused what sort of a thing. Maybe other inflammatory triggers in the body triggered the mouth inflammation, that's also triggering the Alzheimer's disease, which is also being called type 3 diabetes. So there's a lot that we're kind of learning in this arena, but there is that connection between periodontal disease and Alzheimer's disease. So let me show you something now, because you might be thinking, hey, but I take a probiotic, so thank goodness I'm good, right? Let me show you this, because that's going to help answer that question and explain why there's new probiotics coming out that are specific for the mouth. So as you can see, you have your mouth and oral cavity up there. The esophagus, basically that food pipe into the stomach, which is that holding tank. It's really acidic, and that's where the most of food breakdown starts. And then most of our microbiome is in the large intestine here. So if you're taking a probiotic that's in a capsule, it's going to stay in that capsule until the stomach, where it's going to start to get broken down. And a lot of companies are now working on getting capsules that can hold up to stomach acidity, so those probiotics don't die in that acidic environment and in fact get to where they need to go. So this is why if you are having mouth oral issues and want to try a probiotic for the mouth, a capsulated normal probiotic isn't going to help much. You do need a probiotic that's going to be specific, often chewable, so that it will stay and reside in that oral cavity. So now let's talk about the mouth-gut connection. What we know is that the oral cavity can be a reservoir and kind of like this holding tank for bad bugs that can actually make intestinal issues worse. And what we know is that for individuals who are struggling with some disease states, the researchers have found that there are several microbes of oral origin that have been found to be higher in these individuals who are struggling with IBD, so inflammatory bowel disease, that's Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and even colon cancer and liver cirrhosis and HIV infection. So that's the bidirectional, the oral to the gut. Now, what's really interesting is some research that came out in 2017 is showing that there's also a connection, possibly connection that we have some limited research on so far, showing the gut to the oral cavity. And so this research, and I can link it in the description under this video, showed that under some techniques that they used, they isolated the salivary microbiota and showed that it was a strong indicator of T helper cells when they colonize in the gut. And the strains that they're finding were resistant to multiple antibiotics, and they tended to colonize when the intestinal microbiota is dysbiotic. So that means if your intestine is off balance, the microbiota, all those bugs and yeast and things are off balance, then you're more likely to have some of these bad bugs from the oral cavity come down and start to cause more issue and elicit what they say in the article, severe gut inflammation in the context of a genetically susceptible host. So somebody's susceptible, and that can trigger. And so it's really important that we're doing all that we can to keep this oral cavity healthy, and then also the intestinal cavity healthy, so we don't have any of those negative bidirectional relationships going on. So you might be thinking now, okay, Ashley, that's great, but what do I do? How do I do that? Well, one thing is food-wise. So what we know is that sugar can make mouth health worse. And it can do that because it'll lower that pH in the mouth, and that can lead to more of these acidic bacteria causing this mouth dysbiosis. So more of those bad bugs like that Streptococcus mucins can grow, and then as already mentioned, that can start to lead to some of this inflammation and cavities and all these other things that we found in the research. So in our Heal Your Gut course, we have a whole presentation about sugar, because what happens in the United States is that most people are eating more sugar than they even realize in many cases. And so the WHO's World Health Organization recommendations and everything is what we talk about in that section. But basically just tune into how much sugar you're consuming from different foods and do what you can to lower that. Work with our clinic if you need to, because it's really going to significantly help to prevent you from getting this dysbiosis and this overgrowth of bad bacteria in your mouth. Now, the next thing that you can do is you can actually test the bacteria in your mouth, which is really, really fascinating. So there's a company, Periopath Oral DNA Testing. So if you just Google Periopath Oral DNA Test, this will come up. And this test will show 4 high-risk bugs, 6 medium risk, and 3 to 4 low risk, and might give you an idea as to what's going on in your mouth, but also not necessary, because if you are having gum bleeding every time you floss, or most times you floss, and when you go to the dentist you don't get a really great report, I mean, that's clues in itself that this should be prioritized. So that brings us into the big question of the day. Should you then take an oral probiotic? But before we move on, I just want to pause and ask you to subscribe if you haven't, and hit the bell next to that subscription button so that you get notified when we release new videos every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And I so appreciate your support. So done with the mini infomercial, and we'll get back to talking about mouth health. So if you're struggling with any of the symptoms that I had mentioned, I would say yes. There's a review article that came out in 2017, and it looked at 15 articles. 12 were randomized controlled trials of good, high quality, 2 meta-analysis, and 1 systemic review. And the conclusion that this review article came to is that yes, probiotic usage can be beneficial for the maintenance of oral health. So that's a really cool thing, because it's a simple intervention that could make a significant difference. And in 2020, a study came out showing that probiotics could also help to break up these biofilms. And if you don't know what biofilms are, a really easy way to think of this is it's like this house that these bacteria can build around them. And so this biofilm house can often be resistant to different interventions of things that, for example, antibiotics, if we're trying to kill bad bugs, this can help prevent and protect those bugs to survive. And so the fact that giving an oral probiotic could help to break down these biofilms is a great thing, because that means that you're more likely to have it work and be effective at creating healthier diversity in your mouth, alongside making sure you tune into the foods that you're eating, of course, and keeping that sugar conversation at the forefront of your mind as well. So let's do these two things together. Now, and I'm going to link an oral probiotic below for you in case that you're interested in trying this. I would suggest taking it at night before bed so that it just has time to kind of adhere in your oral cavity, versus if you're taking it with food, probably less likely to have the best chance at doing that. Now, something else that's really interesting that's on the market that you could also try alongside this is there are toothpastes that have herbs in them that have been shown to help with some of this balancing, and some anti-inflammatory herbs and things of that sort. So the one I'm going to talk about today is called Dentalcidin Herbal Toothpaste, and I'm going to also put the link below. Now, this contains things like aloe vera gel, and spearmint, and peppermint, and tea tree oil, and cinnamon, and clove bud, and a lot of those nutrients do have this antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory benefit, and some of the limited research that the company has so far is showing that it can help with that balancing of that kind of microbiota. And so I have a personal story related to this, where I used the Biocidin products and I was having terribly bad breath that came out of nowhere. And with using their products, and we don't have to get into the whole story of what triggered what, the root causes, but basically with using their products, it got rid of that halitosis, thank goodness. So I really am a believer in this. And we always talk about, when there's not a lot of research, what's the potential benefit to the potential risk in using something like this herbal toothpaste? Really low potential risk. So why not try it for a few months and see if you notice benefit in your symptoms, or when you go to the dentist the next time, see if they notice any benefit too. And so when we talk about this, aloe actually has been shown to have antimicrobial benefit. There's clinical trials showing that aloe vera toothpaste reduce plaque, gingivitis, and overall reduction in candida counts. So overall, it improved oral health, and that's one of the main ingredients of this. The other ones, like the spearmint, has antimicrobial, anti-plaque benefits. Peppermint antimicrobial, tea tree oil. You might know this already, but some anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antiseptic, and cinnamon, anti-plaque, antimicrobial as well. And then the last two, clove is antimicrobial, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and then royal jelly, antimicrobial. And so I'm gonna link this below. And let's kind of dive in then to talk about some other factors that can influence mouth health before I kind of give the wrap-up recommendation from this video. And so it's pretty rare for me to get through a video and not talk about micronutrients because they influence so much, and so many people are micronutrient deficient, especially in the United States. And so it's no surprise that this also comes into play when we're talking about mouth health. So there's a whole list of nutrients, so we can create a whole new video on this that can positively influence mouth health if you have good stores, or negatively if you're low. And certainly, as always, testing is best. So things like iron and copper and selenium and vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, K, folate, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, B12, and can you believe that? Like, check out that list. And so if you in your mouth are having symptoms like the corners are cracking, or you have like this candida, really white mouth, or you're having inflammation where, like as mentioned, if you're flossing and you're bleeding, you know, some of these micronutrients will come into play if you have low levels that could be preventing from healing. And one that's really notable for gingivitis and bleeding is vitamin C. And a lot of people already do know that if you are deficient in vitamin C, like severe deficiency is scurvy, but then there's everything in between, that just using some supplement or focusing on getting in vitamin C rich foods can improve mouth health and help to maybe even completely resolve the bleeding if you're experiencing that. Okay. Now, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned I'm going to share what might be causing sewage breath, and then this like decomposing sweet apple breath. And for sewage breath, that could be a sign of gastroparesis, which means that stomach motility is really slow for one reason or another. So just kind of an interesting fact, it could also be due to an abscess or an obstruction. And then that sweet decomposing apple taste, that could be a sign of diabetes. So that's really important to think about. And then if that's happening to you and you go in and see your doctor and get a diagnosis, this is really important, but you definitely should see a functional nutrition dietitian for that, because if it's type 2 diabetes, there's a really good chance that you could reverse that. I've seen it done. I've worked with doctors that had whole programs on this. So I really, if you can get off insulin and not need that, I mean, that would be incredible. So I really want you to know that, because a lot of people don't know that. Now, I want to also share that a fishy, kind of rancid butter, boiled cabbage taste could be a sign of renal failure. Renal is just a fancy word for kidney failure. There's more. We could create like lots of videos talking about oral health, but I just wanted to make sure to share that piece, especially about the micronutrients, when we're talking about this overall topic of mouth health. And so what is my recommendation in the takeaway? If you're struggling with bad breath, that halitosis, or you have bleeding gums, you have cavities all the time, I would recommend start an oral probiotic, try the Dental Side and toothpaste, decrease your sugar intake, and do those things for about, a few months, at the least 6 months, definitely, or until you're going to see the dentist again. And you'll know, based upon whether your symptoms are improving, if you get a better report from your dentist, whether it's working or not. So that is my recommendation. So I hope this was helpful to you. I want to thank you for watching. Again, if you want to schedule a free 30-minute call below, you can do that. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and then hit that bell so you'll be notified of new videos that we release every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next week on our next video.